Right now, as you are watching this video, a storm system is spinning up over the central United States that meteorologists are already calling one of the most dangerous setups of the entire season. Not next week, not hypothetically. Right now, models are locking in, watches are being issued, and emergency managers in 3 states are quietly moving equipment into position because they know exactly what is coming. If you think this is just another line of thunderstorms, you are about to find out how wrong that assumption is. Stay right here, because what is developing across the plains and Midwest over the next 48 hours has every hallmark of a system that causes real damage, real injuries, and in the worst case scenario, real fatalities. And whether you live in Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, or 1,000 miles away, understanding how a storm like this comes together is the difference between watching a headline and understanding a warning. Let us go back to the beginning, because you need the full picture to understand just how serious this setup actually is. Over the past 5 days, an unusually stubborn ridge of high pressure has been parked over the southern United States, pumping temperatures into the triple digits from Texas up through Oklahoma. Heat indices in some areas have been sitting between 105 and 112 degrees for 4 straight days. That heat is not just uncomfortable, it is fuel. Warm, moist air at the surface is the raw energy source for severe thunderstorms, and right now the atmosphere over the plains is loaded with it. Dew points have been sitting in the low to mid 70s across large sections of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri, values that meteorologists consider dangerously high for this part of the country. That is tropical level moisture sitting over the heartland. At the same time, a strong upper level disturbance is dropping out of the Rockies, dragging a sharp cold front behind it. When you take that much low level heat and moisture and slam it into a fast moving cold front with strong upper level winds overhead, you get what meteorologists call a textbook severe weather setup. The Storm Prediction Center has already placed a large portion of the Central Plains under an enhanced risk for severe weather, and forecasters are not ruling out an upgrade to a moderate risk as the system comes together. For those who do not follow these categories closely, an enhanced risk already signals numerous severe storms are expected. A moderate risk is one step below the highest level the Storm Prediction Center issues, reserved for setups capable of widespread, significant, severe weather, including strong, long-track tornadoes. Ask yourself something right now. If your area was placed under a tornado watch tonight, would you know where the safest room in your house actually is? Drop your answer in the comments, because thousands of people watching this video right now genuinely do not know. And that single piece of information saves lives every single severe weather season. The National Weather Service offices across the region have already begun issuing briefings, warning of the potential for large hail capable of exceeding golf ball and even baseball size in the strongest storms, along with damaging straight-line winds that could reach 70 to 80 miles per hour in isolated cells. But hail and wind are not what has emergency officials most concerned. It is the tornado threat. Wind shear values, the change in wind speed and direction with height that gives storms their rotation, are forecast to be exceptionally strong through the entire atmospheric column. And when you combine strong shear with the amount of instability building in from the heat and moisture, you create an environment capable of producing supercell thunderstorms, the type of rotating storm responsible for the vast majority of strong and violent tornadoes in the United States. Emergency management officials in at least 4 counties have already activated their storm spotter networks ahead of schedule. Volunteer spotters, trained by the National Weather Service, are being asked to be in position by early afternoon, hours before the first storms are even expected to fire. That is not a normal precaution. That is a sign that officials believe this event has the potential to move fast and turn dangerous with very little warning. And here is where this story takes a turn that should concern anyone downstream of aging infrastructure. Sitting directly in the path of the most likely storm track is a reservoir system that has been flagged in multiple state infrastructure reports over the past several years as being in need of significant repair. The dam holding back that reservoir was built more than 70 years ago, and while it has never failed, engineers have repeatedly warned that its spillway capacity was designed for a different era of rainfall patterns that no longer reflect what the region has experienced over the last decade. If this system trains repeated rounds of heavy rain over the same watershed, which current models suggest is a real possibility, officials say the reservoir could approach levels not seen since it was constructed. Local emergency management has confirmed that personnel will be monitoring the structure continuously once the heaviest rain begins, and downstream communities have already received advisories reminding them of evacuation routes should conditions deteriorate. If you have found this breakdown useful so far, do this channel a real favor and hit that like button right now. Videos like this take hours of research to put together, and every like tells the algorithm to put this information in front of more people who genuinely need to see it before tomorrow. Now let us talk about timing, because this is where things get serious for millions of people. The first round of storms is expected to develop during the late afternoon hours as daytime heating reaches its peak and finally breaks the cap that has been suppressing storm development. Forecasters expect discrete supercells to form initially, the most dangerous configuration for tornado production, because these storms are not fighting for energy with neighboring cells. As the evening progresses, those discrete cells are expected to grow upscale into one or more clusters, potentially organizing into a bowing line segment capable of producing widespread damaging wind gusts across a broad swath of the region. This is the exact progression meteorologists watch for when they are worried about a high-end severe weather event, because it means the threat does not end when the sun goes down. If anything, the danger increases after dark, when tornadoes become significantly harder to see, and warnings become the only thing standing between families and injury. Overnight, severe weather is uniquely dangerous for one simple reason: people are asleep. Studies going back decades have shown that nighttime tornadoes are roughly twice as likely to result in fatalities compared to tornadoes that strike during daylight hours, largely because people do not hear warnings, do not see the sky, and do not have the visual confirmation that often prompts people to take shelter. If you live anywhere within the highlighted risk area tonight, having a way to receive warnings that will wake you up, a weather radio, a phone alert system, anything other than relying on hearing sirens through a closed window while you sleep, is not optional. It is the single most important preparation step you can take in the next 12 hours. Emergency officials across the affected states have already begun pre-positioning resources. National Guard units in at least 2 states have been placed on standby status, ready to mobilize for search and rescue or debris clearance operations should the worst-case scenario materialize. Utility companies have called in additional line crews from neighboring states, anticipating widespread power outages from both wind damage and lightning-related equipment failures. Hospitals in the highest risk corridor have now reviewed their severe weather protocols and confirmed backup generator readiness, a standard but telling precaution that hospital administrators only formalize publicly when they believe the threat is credible and significant. Here is the part of this story that goes beyond just this one storm system, because what is setting up over the plains right now fits into a pattern meteorologists have been documenting with increasing concern for years. Severe weather outbreaks are not becoming more frequent everywhere, but research consistently shows that when the right ingredients come together, the storms that do form are increasingly capable of producing higher-end impacts. Warmer air holds more moisture. More moisture means more available energy for storms to draw from. Some of the most destructive severe weather outbreaks in recent American history, from the 2011 super outbreak to more recent events across the Midwest and South, have shared this exact fingerprint: a hot, humid air mass colliding with a strong cold front and powerful upper-level winds. That does not mean every setup like this produces a historic event. It means the ingredients being tracked right now are the same ingredients meteorologists point to when they explain why these outbreaks happen. Add to that the broader pattern this year. The National Weather Service has already confirmed that this spring produced an above-average number of tornado reports across the central United States, continuing a trend of active severe weather seasons that has strained emergency management resources in multiple states. Insurance industry data has shown severe convective storm losses, meaning damage from tornadoes, hail, and straight-line winds combined, climbing year over year, now regularly surpassing hurricane. Related losses in some years when you total the cumulative impact of dozens of individual outbreaks. This is not a headline people talk about as much as hurricanes, but the financial and human toll adds up just the same, storm by storm, town by town. So what happens in the next 24 hours? Based on current model guidance, the highest risk window begins this afternoon and extends through roughly 2 o'clock in the morning across the primary corridor, with a secondary, somewhat lower risk continuing into the following afternoon as the system pushes eastward. Areas under the enhanced risk should expect the possibility of multiple tornado warnings throughout the evening, some of which may be issued with very little lead time if storms rapidly intensify, which is common in environments with this much available instability. Large hail capable of causing significant property and vehicle damage is expected to accompany the strongest cells. Straight-line wind gusts in the bowing segments later in the evening could be strong enough to snap trees and bring down power lines across a wide area, independent of any tornado activity. Share this video right now. Seriously, copy the link and send it to anyone you know who lives in the path of this system. Not to cause panic, but because the single biggest factor in surviving a severe weather event is knowing it is coming with enough time to actually prepare. And too many people still find out a storm is dangerous, only after it has already passed through their neighborhood. If you're in the risk area tonight, here's what officials are recommending right now. Charge your phones fully before the storms arrive, because power outages are likely, and a dead phone means no warnings. Identify your safest location, ideally a basement or an interior room on the lowest floor, away from windows. before storms are anywhere near you, not after sirens are already sounding. Keep shoes near your shelter location, because walking through storm debris barefoot is one of the most common causes of injury after a tornado has already passed. If you have outdoor furniture, trampolines, or anything that could become airborne in high winds, secure it or bring it inside now, while conditions are still calm. And if local officials issue an evacuation notice for any reason, including concerns about the reservoir system mentioned earlier, treat that notice as immediate and non-negotiable. There's one more piece of this puzzle that deserves attention, because it explains why some forecasters are using language they normally reserve for the most dangerous setups of the year. Storm mode matters enormously in situations like this. A single, well-organized supercell moving through open country is dangerous, but it is a threat forecasters know how to warn for with real precision. What concerns meteorologists more in this specific setup is the potential for a phenomenon called training, where storm after storm moves over the exact same corridor for hours at a time, each one following the path of the one before it. When that happens with severe thunderstorms, it does not just increase the tornado and wind threat, it also raises the risk of flash flooding on top of everything else, because the ground beneath those repeated storms simply cannot absorb that much rain in that short a window. Combine that with a reservoir system already flagged for aging infrastructure, and you can see why emergency officials are not treating this as a routine severe weather day. There is also the question of what happens after the storms pass, because that is the part of these events people tend to underestimate. In the hours immediately following a significant severe weather outbreak, downed power lines are one of the leading causes of injury and death, often because people assume a line that is not sparking must be safe. It is not. Any downed line should be treated as energized until a utility crew confirms otherwise. Flooded. Roadways are another major hazard afterward, particularly at night when depth is nearly impossible to judge from a vehicle, which is exactly why "turn around, don't drown" remains one of the most repeated warnings from the National Weather Service every single year. Local officials are also urging residents not to go storm chasing or debris hunting in the immediate aftermath of any tornado warning in their area, even out of simple curiosity. Gas leaks, unstable structures, and downed lines are frequently invisible until someone is already standing next to them, and emergency crews trying to reach genuine victims should not have to navigate around bystanders trying to get a look at the damage. If you want to help a community that gets hit hard by this system, the most useful thing you can do in the first hours afterward is stay out of the way and let trained responders do their jobs, then look toward organized relief efforts once the immediate danger is passed. Insurance experts are also watching the system closely. And if you live in the affected corridor, now is the time to do the boring but important things, not after the storm has already rolled through. Take photos of your home's exterior and any vehicles parked outside. Confirm your policy actually covers wind and hail damage, because in some states, those coverages are handled separately from a standard policy. None of this is exciting content, but every single year, people who did this simple step before a storm arrived recover faster and with far less financial stress than those who did not. What would you do if a warning came through at 2 a.m. telling you a confirmed tornado was on the ground and moving toward your community? Have you actually walked through that scenario, or is it something you assume you will figure out in the moment? Most people have never actually rehearsed it. Most people assume severe weather happens to other towns, other states, other people. And then one night, it does not. Subscribe to this channel if you want to stay ahead of systems like this one, tracked honestly, explained clearly, and delivered before the story becomes a headline instead of a warning. Because here is the bottom line on what is developing right now. Every ingredient meteorologists look for when they are worried about a serious severe weather outbreak is coming together at the same time, over the same region, within the same 12 to 18-hour window. Extreme heat, deep tropical moisture, a sharp cold front, powerful wind shear, an aging piece of infrastructure, sitting directly in the most likely storm track. None of these factors alone would be alarming. Together, they form exactly the kind of setup that turns into the outbreaks people remember for years afterward. The storms have not arrived yet. The watches have not even been upgraded to warnings. But the pattern is locked in, the atmosphere is loaded, and the people whose job it is to track this professionally are already moving resources into position. That alone should tell you everything you need to know about how seriously this is being taken behind the scenes. Think back to every major severe weather outbreak you have ever heard about. In almost every case, meteorologists saw the ingredients coming together days in advance. The heat, the moisture, the shear, the front, they were all visible on the models long before the first siren ever sounded. The tragedy in so many of those events was never a lack of warning from the science. It was the gap between the warning being issued and people actually acting on it. That gap is where preventable injuries happen, where families lose everything they own because they assumed the storm everyone had been talking about all week would somehow pass them by. Do not let tonight be another example of that gap. If you are watching this from outside the risk area, do not tune out just because the storm is not aimed at your town this time. This same pattern, extreme heat colliding with strong upper-level energy, is becoming a more frequent visitor to communities across this country in seasons and regions that did not used to see setups like this with this kind of regularity. Understanding how these systems form and turn dangerous is knowledge that will matter for your own community eventually, even if it is not your turn this time. Storms like this do not ask permission before they arrive, and they do not wait for people to finish preparing. The only real question left is whether the communities in this storm's path spend the next several hours getting ready or spend the next several days recovering. History does not remember the forecasts. It remembers whether people listen to them in time.